Hello, my fellow producers, and welcome to Home Studio Cables. My name is Colin Warren, and I am a 16-year-old DJ and producer hailing from Seattle. I come here today to present a topic which will hopefully not only help you guys learn more than your fair share on cables, but to fulfill my Week 1 requirements for the Introduction to Music Production Coursera course. So, without further ado, let's get down to the cables. Oh, and as a general disclaimer, this video is going to be centered around the cables themselves. I would suggest looking for other tutorials if you want info on how to hook cables up, specifically. In music production, the most commonly used cables are the 1/4" TS instrument cable, the 1/4" TRS stereo cable, the 1/8" stereo/TRS cable, the XLR cable, the RCA cable, and the MIDI cable, or MIDI. There are also other cable designs such as the Toslink and SPDIF cables, but these are rarely used, so we will not bother with them in this video. The 1/4" tip and shield, TS for short, is the most common cable found in the average production studio. These cables are mainly used to hook up your guitars, preamps, effect boxes, etc. These cables are also considered unbalanced cables, as they only have a single conductor ring on the tip of the cable. These cables are more susceptible to noise than their counterpart, the balanced cable. However, they will get the job done in your average recording studio. The next cable we are concerned with is the 1/4" TRS/stereo cable. This cable is identical to the TS cable, except for the fact that it has an extra ring on its tip, hence the R in its name. These cables are mainly found on your stereo output headphones, hence the reason why these cables are also called stereo cables. In addition to transferring two different signals at once, TRS cables can also transfer one electrical audio signal, with the added benefit of removing the extra noise that might come into being through the long and fairly sensitive cables. This noise removing capability is what allows the TRS cable to become a balanced cable in some circumstances. However, in a normal stereo output, your typical TRS cable will not have this added benefit, but will assume the unbalanced cable state. Another similar cable to the 1/4" TRS cable is the 1/8" TRS cable. These types of cables operate in the exact same way as their larger counterpart does, the only real difference being that these cables are used for smaller headphones/instruments. Now, in terms of microphones, you would rarely use a TS/TRS cable, but instead would use a type of cable specifically designed for delicate microphone signals. The cable which deals with these delicate microphone signals is called the XLR cable. XLR cables use pins to connect the microphone to a preamp, an interface, etc. Typically, you will see 3 pins on these XLR cables, mainly due to the fact that 3 pins is the industry standard for XLR cables. There are other industries, such as the airline industry, that use XLR cables which have 4 to 9 pins, but typically you will only see 3-pinned XLR cables in the home studio recording industry. The 3-pinned XLR cable uses a hot-cold ground relationship to ensure that the signal receives very little interference when traveling through the cable. Overall, the XLR cable is a very solid audio cable and is essential to every home and professional studio. RCA cables are another type of cable typically found in a home theater arrangement. These cables were originally a low-cost, simple design, intended only for mating and disconnecting when servicing the consoles in the Radio Corporation of America, hence the acronym for RCA. Due to the commercial use of these cables, you will find that these cables are not ideal for the professional environment of a recording studio due to the unwanted buzz heard when connecting these cables. However, when necessary, these cables will do the job, though they should be avoided when possible. The last cable we will be covering today is the MIDI cable. MIDI cables are designed to transfer MIDI data from one console to another. However, due to the fact that these cables are only one-way communicators, 2 of them are needed to communicate back and forth between 2 consoles. In addition to this, since the MIDI programming language has no ability to detect errors, MIDI cables are limited to 15 feet in length to limit interference in the code. MIDI cables usually use the design of a 5-pin DIN design, which is short for Deutsches Institut für Normung. You will typically use MIDI cables for audio interfaces, although MIDI inputs/outputs can usually be found on modern synthesizers and on some effect boxes. Some of these devices even have a special port called the MIDI through port, which allows the signal to travel through the given device into another device via daisy chain movement. However, your typical MIDI-capable device will usually only have a MIDI import and a MIDI output. This ends our quick overview of cables typically found in a home studio. As I mentioned before, there are many other cables which could be used for different purposes, but typically for the need to have, you will only need these cable designs. I hope you guys enjoyed this short video put together for the Introduction to Music Production course. And as always, this is Colin, aka DJ Vu, signing out.